What's good, y'all? Elvis here. So the first time I watched Kevin Samuels had to have been maybe 4 years ago. And this is way before he was having conversations with women and blew up and all that stuff. And all the content I watched from him, he was specifically giving game to men. Kevin Samuels was big homie, bro. And I really feel like he was big homie to me because there was a lot of similarities and things I really resonated with him over. Just when it comes to his logic, the way he processes information, we relate, especially when it comes to delivery. I'm the type of person where I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be as concise and honest as possible. And more often than not, it's blunt. So don't ask me any question you don't want the answer to. And I didn't grow up with any brothers. And by the time I was 12, my dad wasn't involved in my life like that anymore. For a long time, I didn't have any masculine role models to give me game or give me an example of what masculinity really is. And the more I learned about him, the more I related to him. We both grew up in similar feminine environments. And coincidentally, like him, I went to college to study chemical engineering. Do not ask about the degree. I am not finished yet. Like since I was 12, I didn't really have any masculine role models around me. I had a few uncles cycle in and out that felt like they needed to give me some guidance. But quickly I realized these niggas was lost too. But the way that always went was I was almost always just kind of let down. It was just kind of a process of people continuously letting me down. And most of the guidance I was getting wasn't something I consider valuable. 90% of the people that were telling me, you should do this, you should do that, or trying to steer me in a direction, they had no actual knowledge of what that life was like or what that path would be like. No shade, I got love and appreciation for everyone who tried to benefit me, but those were a bunch of blind people trying to give me directions. But retrospectively, now I realize that the reason I was getting let down and disappointed over and over again was because of the lack of an example of masculinity in my life. So I didn't know how to identify what real masculinity looked like or felt like. So whenever somebody was in a place where they would be willing to give me a little bit of energy, a little bit of guidance, a little bit of their time, and they had something that looked masculine going on, I latched onto that really quick. That's because as a boy grows up, he doesn't just transition into a man. The difference between a man and a boy is not chronological. Masculinity is something that has to be learned, taught, and honed. And I didn't have any concrete examples of that. So I was chasing the masculinity in a bunch of individuals who were just trying to fake it to make it. Other lost people. But Kevin was different. And while a lot of the points and some of the content he was giving me were things that I heard from other people, his specific experience and his specific delivery made me receive it a lot deeper. And he was so fucking honest. And not even just when he's talking to other people, when he's talking about himself. One thing I've realized as far as human nature, nobody is quick to show you their mistakes and their weakness. They would much rather forget it, or they much rather you forget it. He was super forthcoming with his flaws and his mistakes for the sake of teaching somebody a lesson. And a lot of those people are people that he didn't even know. That one man put so much into my life, and he single-handedly supplemented the game that was my father's responsibility to give me. Words that I heard from Kevin Samuels made my life infinitely better. As far as my personal development, my business, my relationships. You know, when I first started watching this content, my pockets were hurting. I was still grinding, trying to make stuff happen. But the guidance that he gave me streamlined that process, and I'm so thankful for that. He put so much game into me for free that I personally feel, and I still feel, he's entitled to money in my pocket. When I was first watching him, of course, you know, I was in the down season. But as soon as I got my bag up, I was on the Patreon, I was a member of the channel. Even if it's nothing to him, I'm gonna make sure this man gets bread out of my pocket. And by the time I was on Patreon and a member of the channel and stuff, I didn't have time to watch like even half of his content. But the value that he gave me and that he still continues to give me when I watch his content remains. The money was such a small exchange for that. Bro, when I heard he died, yo, I ain't never been so hurt about somebody I did not ever meet. Bro, that really fucking hurt. Because I was looking forward to so much. Like, I wanted to meet him one day. I remember he was talking about writing a book, and I was thinking, man, when that book come out, I'm gonna get the hard copy, I'm gonna get the audio version, shit, I'm gonna get the ebook, all that shit. I wanted to get the opportunity to at least say thank you. He put so much into me when he was here, but that didn't even stop when he died. And the day he died, I remember sitting there thinking like, damn, not Kevin, not big homie. And that really put into context how short life is. And that we're not guaranteed any time after this second. That made me think about my dad. For some background, my dad and I had somewhat of a rocky relationship at some point, but it was very positive up until I was like 12 and he moved away. But then he just stayed away. Like 12 to my early years in college, I was dealing with a lot of abandonment issues. And a lot of my pain and aggression was directed towards my father. But over time, as you grow up, you start to learn the details of interaction between your parents, and you get a more realistic view of what actually transpired. It took a few years, but soon I understood his perspective. And honestly, I feel like him leaving was the best case scenario for all of us involved, especially considering the stuff that he was dealing with. And for a long time, I was kept from understanding his perspective because of a narrative fed to me through my mother. And everybody has their own specific amount of accountability for whatever happened, but I don't hold any resentment towards either of them about it. I just understand life be like that sometimes. But for the last few years, me and my father have been pretty cool. Like, he stays outside of like the continental United States. So, I mean, I might call him every now and then and we talk a little bit, just catching each other up. But the calls are kind of few and far between, but we are both the kind of people that don't feel like calling often. So the amount of time we call is just about enough. So the frequency of the calls was not really that much of a problem. But you know, our conversation would be kind of short. It'd be the basic catching up stuff, the fluff, small talk, all that stuff. Like I said, with Kevin Samuels, I saw a lot of similarities between us. And that made me think about the similarities I have between me and my father. And I always kind of felt like, you know, we have a few habits in common, but I never thought of me being any kind of copy of him. But this whole situation made me really take a closer look at my father. And I started to realize that even though we have completely different hobbies, completely different interests, we have a lot of the same character and personality traits and temperaments. And that made me think. There was a point in time when I looked at the relationship between me and my father through a child's eyes without the wisdom understanding of an adult. And it took some time for that to happen, but I looked at our relationship through the eyes of a man. That's when I got to a place where I had no animosity towards him because I understood what he was dealing with. And I don't fault him for his flaws because he was only equipped with the tools and the knowledge that he had to make the decisions that he did. And now as a man, looking at his decisions with what he had to work with, I think he made impeccable decisions. It was just a lot of shitty situations, but I think his decisions were good and came from a good place. But even though I viewed our relationship through the eyes of a man, I realized I never looked at him. I never looked at him as an individual through the eyes of a man. As a child, you don't see your parents as real people. You see them as somebody who is responsible for you, people that you need for things. And sure, there's love and appreciation for whatever they do for you, but as a child, you don't even have a concept of who they are outside of their relation to you. Kids don't think about what their parents' life was like before them because it doesn't matter. We're here now. So I called up my dad, and instead of trying to have the bullshit little small talk that we usually do, I just started asking him about him. I know you're my dad, but who are you? What are the things you aspire to in life? What are the things that make you get up and go? What are the things that you care about? Basically trying to build high-level, deep rapport with my dad, like I do with my clients. And then he just started telling me stories. And what usually was a 5 to 10 minute conversation turned into like 3 hours. He told me like a good chunk of his life story. He basically gave me his life story from being a teenager in Uganda to me becoming a teenager. And I was really, really impressed. Like, he was telling me about hijinks he was getting into. He had to lead a country. Him and his friends had to run for their lives to do this and this and that. He was telling me about what could easily been a dope ass movie. Like, I always knew I had smart parents. I'm smart as shit. On a regular basis, I use the gift that is my intellect to maneuver through life. But when he was telling me the story, I realized, like, my dad is clever, resourceful, witty as shit. Like, this is a whole nother side of him I never really saw because it was always blocked by the image of my father. I realized at that moment I've only ever seen him as my father. I never saw the man behind him. And this whole thing with Kevin's death and me connecting with my dad, it made me realize that at a certain point I thought I didn't need any more parenting. I thought because chronologically I'm a grown man now. What do I need fathering for? But that is so incorrect because we're all in process. And there's always somebody that's further along in a process that could help us. A lot of times those people are around us, but we're not trying to receive what they're giving us. It's never too late to get mentorship, whether it comes from a parent or not. Even with my father, I realized when I listen and I'm receptive to specific information, it's there for me. There are gems for me to pick up. And there are different gems than Kevin was giving me in different aspects of life. But who the fuck am I? What the fuck do I know? Why am I turning down information? Like, before, there was a lot of stuff I get from either my mom or my dad or uncles or aunts that just didn't fit The information they were giving me compared to like how it actually fit into my life was like a square peg going into a round hole. And I used to be so closed-minded, and I thought if the information wasn't a perfect fit, it's useless. That's such a losing mentality. There's always something for you to learn from other people. Their life has different contexts. They have different experiences. Their whole library of knowledge is built different. There is something for you to get from them, even if you don't like how it sounds. But Kevin Samuels, in life and in death, was making a big difference in my life. And I'll forever be appreciative of that. I send all my love and condolences to his family and his loved ones. More than anything, it's reinforced the idea of giving people their flowers when they hear it. Bro, I know Kevin knew he was appreciated, bro. Like, outside of all the bullshit people are trying to give him, he knew the good that he was doing. That's why he did it. But like millions of other people, that's how Kevin Samuels touched my life. I will always appreciate him for that. All right, but I appreciate y'all watching. That's all I got for today. But till next time, Craft Over Clout, I'm out.